Dock strike begins in the USA. My predictions and advice. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to discuss a major development that could have ripple effects across the economy, the dock strike that has just started in the United States. This strike isn't just a small-scale issue, it's going to affect industries, supply chains, businesses, and maybe even your daily life in ways that you might not expect. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the situation, making some predictions about what could happen next, and offering you advice on how to prepare, whether you're a business owner, an investor, or just someone wanting to stay ahead of the game. Alright, let's start with the basics. As you probably know, the dockworkers union in the US has launched a strike, and this is happening at some of the most important ports in the country. These ports handle a massive percentage of all the goods that come into and go out of the United States. We're talking about billions of dollars in trade every single day. And when something like this happens, it's not just the port workers or the shipping companies that are affected, the impact spreads across industries and even globally. The main issue behind this strike is that negotiations between the unions and the port authorities, or management, have broken down. The dockworkers are asking for wage increases, better working conditions, and improvements to benefits, while management is trying to balance costs in a time of rising inflation and uncertain economic conditions. Historically, labor strikes like these are never easy to resolve, and they tend to drag on longer than people expect. My first prediction is that this dock strike could last longer than expected. Now, if you look at the history of strikes in the US or other countries, particularly in sectors like this, you'll notice that many go on for weeks, sometimes even months. Why do I think this one will be drawn out? Well, both sides are coming from positions of significant leverage. The dockworkers know they're essential to keeping the ports running, and they have strong union support. On the other hand, management and the government are also trying to avoid giving in too easily because it could set a precedent for future negotiations. It's not uncommon for these kinds of strikes to go through several rounds of failed negotiations before a deal is reached. And during that time, it's very likely that we'll see operations at the ports significantly disrupted. Ships will get delayed, containers will pile up, and critical goods may not be available when and where they're needed. Prediction number 1. Prolonged strike duration, *. Next, let's talk about how this strike could impact the global supply chain. In recent years, we've seen how fragile supply chains can be, especially when something unexpected happens. The pandemic, natural disasters, and now labor strikes have all shown us that supply chains are only as strong as their weakest link. Ports, in particular, are critical choke points for the flow of goods, everything from electronics, food, and cars, to raw materials like steel and oil. My second prediction is that supply shortages and price increases are on the horizon. Let's be clear, it may take some time for the effects to trickle down to the consumer level, but as the strike drags on, we'll likely see delays in the arrival of certain products. Some businesses that rely on just-in-time inventory systems will run into stockouts, which means they won't have enough products on hand to meet demand. This could lead to scarcity for certain items, and when supply decreases but demand stays the same or increases, prices go up. So don't be surprised if in the coming weeks or months, you start to see rising prices on everything from electronics to even food products that are imported through these ports. Another area that will undoubtedly be affected is the financial markets. Now, this is a big one for anyone who's invested in stocks, bonds, or commodities. As soon as news broke about the strike, we saw some immediate reactions in the market. Stocks for companies that rely heavily on global trade, such as major retailers, automotive manufacturers, and tech companies, saw some volatility. That's because investors understand that any prolonged disruption at the ports can lead to delays in production, distribution, and ultimately, sales. Prediction number 3. Market volatility. Alright, now that we've covered the predictions, let's move on to the part where I offer some advice * on how you can stay ahead of this situation and protect yourself, whether you're a business owner, an investor, or just a consumer. First, if you're a business owner *, especially one that relies on imports or exports, now is the time to start looking at alternative strategies. One of the best things you can do is to * diversify your supply chain. This means finding alternative suppliers, potentially from different regions or even countries that are less affected by the strike. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is tied to a US port that could be shut down for weeks. Look into air freight as an option for critical shipments. Even second, if you're a consumer *, my advice is simple: be prepared for potential shortages. I'm not saying you need to panic buy or stockpile everything, But it's always a good idea to have a little extra on hand, especially for essential items like food, medicine, or electronics that you know may become scarce. For investors*, I'd recommend keeping a close watch on the situation and perhaps rebalancing your portfolio if necessary. If you've got heavy exposure to industries that depend on global trade, now might be the time to consider diversifying into sectors that are less vulnerable to these kinds of disruptions, such as technology services or domestic manufacturing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.